Hey there, everybody. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of the Monsters Dens Thursday night here on the channel. And in the co-captain's chair, as always, Mr. Chris Alo. What's going on, my friend?
What's going on, Pete? Thanks for having me as always.
We couldn't do this without the king, right?
You're too kind, too kind.
So a little change of scheduling tonight, everybody watching. So originally we were going to be doing our 10 favorite post 2000s horror films, along with Dave LaGreca from Busted Open Radio on Sirius XM, but he had some scheduling conflict. He couldn't make it tonight, so we're probably hopefully going to do that next week. More on that soon. So Chris and I decided to kind of change gears a little bit and do a topic that we were going to do in a couple of weeks and do it tonight. So we had a little last minute scrambling here. So this is all about those great horror films that never got the sequel, that probably could have, right? Or maybe in some instances, sequel didn't seem obvious, but we think maybe they could have had. So we've both got a decent list of some stuff. I think there's some real obvious choices here, and maybe some that aren't so obvious that the more you think about it, it's like, well, maybe they could have done something there. So I'll have Chris kick us off with his first choice of the day.
Okay, cool. All right, thanks, Pete. Yeah, this one, Pete and I, did our best to come up with some potential sequels, and I guess we're not really putting a time frame on it. Like, okay, was this a sequel back then, or is this a sequel now? But in this case of this first movie, would be a sequel for now, and this is actually there are, from what I heard, plans to do an actual sequel to this movie, 30 something years later or 40 years later after the original. Anyway, my first one is Halloween 3 Part 2. And, Tom Atkins is still alive. He's still kicking. So my idea for a sequel is that at the end of Halloween 3, of course, the witches got blown up in the factory, and Tom Atkins is pleading with the third TV station, to take the commercial off. So my premise for a crappy sequel is they didn't take the commercial off, and tons of kids wore the masks and had their heads exploded and had snakes come out. But because Tom Atkins blew up the witches in the factory, they could not take over the world. But because all these kids get killed, Halloween is then banned in 1983, and so it's kind of like Footloose, where they banned dancing, or My Bloody Valentine, where Valentine's Day was banned. So now, fast forward to 2021, and Halloween is finally coming back after all these years. It's multi generations have passed, and wouldn't you know it, just when people are starting to celebrate Halloween again, the crazy witch and warlocks now are coming back to take over the world again. And Tom Atkins is the guy to step up and try and stop them. So that's my pitch for Halloween 3 Part 2.
So would you even call it Halloween 3, or would you just call it Season of the Witch Part 2?
That's true. That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Either way, maybe
Yeah.
do some focus group to figure out what's going to sell more tickets. Obviously,
Isn't
you can't
it?
call it Halloween 4.
Yeah, right. Isn't it amazing? And we talked about this a couple times in recent weeks, but how, especially for folks watching who maybe weren't old enough when this film originally hit the theaters back in 1983 or whatever year that
Yeah,
was.
it's either 82 or 83.
Something like that. Yeah. Back then the film got panned. We all hated it because we wanted to see, it's like, where's Michael Myers, right? What does this have to do with Halloween and Halloween 2? But now, all these years later, we are all looking at this film as kind of like a mini classic, and probably saying to ourselves, if they would have just called it Season of the Witch and not called it Halloween, would this from the beginning be embraced for the really good film that it is?
Yeah, it's true. It's amazing what time does. I mean, I know we've, made the analogy before to music, but, my favorite band being Black Sabbath, so many people shit all over records like Seven Star and Eternal Idol and Headless Cross. But now 30 something years later, people are like, those records are pretty good.
Yeah.
Those are pretty good records, So it's just amazing how time does kind of change people's perspective on people that were around back then, and of course new fans as well. So yeah, because Halloween 3 was the bastard child of the series for decades.
Yeah. Yeah. Unjustly so, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So here's a cool film that, and this is a more modern film. And God, what year did this come in? 2011. And I remember like seeing this film in the theater, and it's one of those movies. And again, they've done a lot of this sort of thing in recent years, where you start watching a movie, and then like midway through the film, you're like, all right, this film is taking a completely different turn than what we thought it was going to be in the beginning and what they kind of marketed it as. And this film became like a typical kind of teenage, maybe sort of slasher type film, maybe haunted house film. And then all of a sudden it became like a real homage and throwback to the old horror films of the 30s and 40s, and just a really great creature film with a kind of technology twist. And the ending basically left it open for a potential sequel. And here we are a decade later, and we never got it. I'm talking about Cabin in the Woods.
Yeah, it's a great one.
Right? I mean, it's like so much promise here. This whole thing of like this, like TV show type of thing. Because again, 2011, this reality TV is like still.
Is that how old that movie's from?
10 years ago, man.
Wow.
Does it seem like yesterday this came out?
Yes, I remember seeing that with a couple buddies in the Fishkill movie theater, and I would have thought maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, 10 years ago.
Wow.
10 years ago. And the whole second half of this movie is like so incredible.
So good.
And you've got what's his face, the guy who plays Thor, Chris Hemsworth, in an early role for him. It's got a good cast, great special effects, monster effects, all that sort of thing. And it's just they could have kept going with this.
Oh, totally.
And do additional reality programming with additional ideas and more different monsters, and they just basically, it ends and you think, okay, we could definitely see more of this, and we never got any. And this, I mean, I remember the critics being totally into this.
Yeah.
And it did pretty good money wise. So, I mean, this centered on a lot of the traditional monsters from yesterday. We got the werewolves and vampires and all that sort of thing, and zombies and whatnot. So, why not do another film where they, set up a scenario with another group of people, and maybe bring like giant monsters into play, like these, or dinosaurs, or like whatever, giant insects or something like that. I mean, literally, you could
do anything.
This is an homage to monster movies of old. And I think really, really well done. And I thought this would have been an easy franchise, and crickets, nothing.
Right. Yeah.
For 10 years. So I don't know. I would love to see it. At this point, it's probably kind of dead in the water, but you never know. But that's what I would
never say never.
Yeah,
well,
so.
I like that. I think that's a great idea. One that movie that I definitely enjoyed. I didn't love it, but I really liked it. Bought it a few times, seen it in the theater, and it came out in the 80s, and it was influenced by the monster movies of the 30s and 40s, and it was the Monster Squad. And I think it's a lot of fun. It's I can't remember if it's PG or PG-13.
I think it was PG. Well, you know what, I have it. Let me. You keep talking. I'll grab it.
But it's a couple kids, and they're they wind up with a couple monsters through time warp stuff, and who help them out. And of course, it's a bunch of children with Frankenstein, Dracula, Wolfman, and Creature from the Black Lagoon.
PG-13, actually. You were right, PG-13.
PG-13, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so my thinking was, obviously kids age out so fast, and it was a great movie. My thinking was to do a reboot, but in modern times, but make it a homage to the 80s. So it's a bunch of kids, but they enlist the help of Jason and Freddy Krueger and Michael Myers, or go the other way, and they get help from a friendly predator, an alien, and Pumpkinhead, and it's the same exact movie as the last one, except it's revamped with the newer monsters, which now really are none of them are new. They're all 40 years old.
Right. That's a really cool idea. This was not a Universal film. This was Paramount. So how were they able to get the
Right.
okay to do the likenesses of all those classic monsters?
Well,
So
I
I'm thinking
think
that's where the issue would be with doing your idea for a sequel.
yes, absolutely. You would need to license it and all that. And I believe on the original Monster Squad, that's why they changed the designs. Like,
Gotcha.
the Wolfman doesn't look like the Universal, doesn't look like Lon Chaney Jr. The creature from the Black Lagoon doesn't look anything really like the creature from the Black Lagoon, but he's obviously a fish monster
Yeah.
inspired by the creature. So that's how I think they got away with it. And I know for Dracula and Frankenstein, like Mego famously made action figures, and they changed the look enough so that they didn't have to pay any rights to Universal. So I'm sure that's what they did for Monster Squad. So yeah, for my idea, you'd have to pony up unless you made a couple space aliens that look like an alien and look like a predator, or I mean, if you had just a killer in a hockey mask, I don't know how you could get away with that, but
There are other masks they could use, I'm sure.
yeah, yeah, no doubt, you could do something with them. So yeah, it would be an interesting idea. But either way, yeah, a Monster Squad sequel would have been good at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of along those same lines, because we're gonna one of the monsters here. I'm amazed. I'm gonna go way back now. I am absolutely amazed, considering that Hammer made what 8 or 10 Frankenstein films, 4 Mummy movies, and 7 or 8 Dracula films, and other
And
vampire.
assorted vampires, yeah,
Right. So what? I mean, how many vampire films in total?
oh,
Like a dozen, right? At
at
least.
least gotta if not more.
They only did one fucking werewolf film.
Makes
So
no sense.
Curse of the Werewolf.
Which is a classic amongst classics.
Yeah, there's Oliver Reed right there if anybody can see that. We never got a sequel to Curse of the Werewolf, or we just never got another werewolf film from Hammer.
Makes no sense.
And what's amazing is that film is so great. You would have thought they would have wanted to, parlay that off and do another kind of Gothic style period piece, or even bring it a little bit more modern. Whether you want to bring back the Oliver Reed character, kind of like Universal brought back Larry Talbot, over and over and over again, and Nashi brought back the Vladimir Daninsky
Right.
character over and over and over again. Why not? And whatever. And in this instance, it's like coming up with a story. I mean, who cares? Just
Yeah.
just do another movie.
Just do it.
Just do another movie, and maybe bring vampires into it, and you just do like some sort of crossover, something like that. But as we saw in all these other Hammer films, the creatures, the monsters never die. They always come back. So while it seemed like they killed off Oliver Reed's werewolf character in this, that doesn't mean anything, right? That could for the next film could go ahead a couple of years, and all of a sudden there he is again. Something happened, brought him back to life. I don't know, but I personally could care less what the storyline would be. I just would have loved to have seen another werewolf film from Hammer. So
Absolutely. I mean, it's amazing considering that they did redo all the stuff that Universal did. You know, Dracula, Frankenstein, the mummies, but why didn't they have a House of Dracula or a House of Frankenstein? I mean, it's like crazy. You had all the monsters, just throw them in one movie.
and that's a really good point. And especially like say around 1974, 75, 76, when Hammer is struggling
Yeah,
to find
when they were on
ideas.
their
Why
last
not just
gas.
do a movie or two where you throw them all in there as a last gasp effort, right?
Yeah, you kept getting Christopher Lee back somehow. You mean you couldn't bring Christopher Lee back and put somebody in a werewolf suit and a Frankenstein suit and have them meet up? I mean, it would have been any worse than some of the movies they actually made.
Yeah. I mean, like Captain Kronos is fun and all, but Would I
Right.
rather seen a big Monster Mash movie? Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a strange one for sure.
I don't know.
That is definitely a strange one.
Anyway,
Right,
back to you.
another good one. All right, so mine, I'm cheating a little bit because I'm crossing over two franchises. But I was saying this for years that they should have come up with a way to mesh these two franchises into one, because they were two of the biggest horror but also action franchises from the early 2000s. And the early movies were great, and then they both ran out of steam. They were both female fronted horror action movies, and of course I'm talking about Resident Evil and Underworld.
Here you
And
go. Yep.
I have always said, okay, they were both running out of steam. Why didn't they team them up? And I'm like, this would have been, I think it would have been big. All you would have had to do was say that's somehow the Umbrella Corporation was behind something with the werewolves and the vampires, and Alice goes in to kill some kind of super monster vampire werewolf hybrid thing, and she winds up crossing paths with Celine. They have a huge fight, and then of course, just like we've seen a million other times, they realize that they're both on the same side, so then they team up to fight the super monster. I'm like, this thing writes itself. But obviously it never happened. But I would have loved it, especially like I said, since both franchises were kind of running out of steam around the same time.
Zombies meets werewolves meets vampires.
Yeah,
We've never seen that to my knowledge.
could have done it. Could have easily done it with two beautiful ladies with lots of guns and bullets. Great, I'm sold.
Yeah.
Here's my money.
I like that idea. I like that. And you never know. You never know.
Hey, listen, crazier things have happened, so who knows?
That's right. All right, so this is an obvious choice for me, because not only is it one of my all-time favorite horror films, the ending completely leaves it up for a sequel. It never happened. Maybe it's for the best, because the ending is just so awesome and ambiguous as it is. But how about Black Christmas? I mean, the psychopath, they never catch. They, inexplicably at the end of the original film, it's like the cops don't really do much checking of anything. They assume that,
they just leave.
They just leave. They don't check the house. They don't even go upstairs. Usually the way it's supposed to be done is if you're at the scene of a crime, right, and someone gets killed and there's things that have happened in that house, you're going to search every inch of that house.
Right.
They never, ever go up into that attic.
Nope.
This how many dead people up there? And the psycho's up there at the end of the film. The cops just leave and he's up there. You hear him talking, whatever. So I've always wanted to know, all these years later, it's like, well, what does this dude do next? What does he do for fun next? You can't tell me after that whole evening that he just goes back to normal life and everything's hunky-dory, right? So I want to know what little mischief he gets into next. Does he, go on a killing rampage? Does he go and crawl into someone else's house? I don't know. Instead of getting a sequel, what do we get? We get 2 remakes that are all terrible. So, Bob, go back and do a sequel to this all these years later. I'm sure he's not interested, but, and again, maybe, for me, this film is so perfect that if I had my choice, I would not have a sequel to it. I think it's just the way it is perfect, but I've always been intrigued by where they would go if they decided to go. And I think, at some point during this film, we don't know anything about the killer. We know nothing about him. We don't even really know what he looks like. Which is the beauty of it. So if you're going to make a sequel, well, we want to know who this dude is now. And I think that's, whatever the storyline might be, it's like, I think they need to investigate who this dude is, why he's doing what he's doing, and then make him kind of like the focal point of the film. But, this is a classic. It's almost like you can't really touch this, but I've always been a little like wanting to know where they would go if they decide to go there. So, but I don't think we're ever going to get that. And maybe that's
well, I was going to say, unfortunately, and it's a sad story. Bob Clark who directed Black Christmas as well as tons of other great movies. Uh, Unfortunately, I believe he was remaking Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things. I believe he was producing and his son was directing, and they were both killed in a terrible car accident.
Oh, so
Uh,
he is dead. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. All right.
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
I mean, he was alive up till a couple years ago, and still in the movie business. And I don't think it was Black Christmas, but the two of them, father and son, were remaking one of his movies. I think it was Children Shouldn't Play with
I
Dead
mean,
Things.
that's another one. That's got one of those endings that like totally leaves it open for that.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
that was one of the early zombie films to begin
Yeah,
with. So, imagine what they could have done with that with like modern production techniques and things.
totally.
Yeah, pretty interesting concept. Yeah,
But yeah, at this point, I don't think we'll get a sequel to the original Black Christmas. Sadly,
that's all right. I'm very happy with watching this every single year in and year out, and
that's
yeah.
awesome.
It's like one of those films that I really, I think we all have like a handful that we
Oh,
really
sure.
watch every single year without fail. I mean, like that, The Exorcist, Jaws. There's a handful of others that like every year you got to watch them at
Yeah,
like a certain time of year or whatever. It's like, yeah, it's time to watch that again. So
I watch Great White every summer, so I totally hear you.
I may have to start doing that soon too.
Oh,
That was a
yeah,
blast. That was so bad, but it was
so
like,
much fun, so much fun. All right, my next one is a newer one. Although I'm thinking, God, did this movie really come out in 2003? I think it did, or 2004. It was many years in the making. It was a huge box office smash, and there was supposed to be a sequel, and it never happened. But I'm talking about Freddy versus Jason.
oh yeah.
And it's still mind blowing that it took so many years to get made, and it was a huge hit, and I really enjoyed it, and it's so much gorier and so much more action than some of the previous movies from both franchises. Left on a cliffhanger, and it actually does have an Easter egg that nobody ever talks about, and I think I'm crazy, but it's there. Although I can't really find much info on it, so maybe some of your viewers might be able to help fill in the blanks here. But there's a shot in Freddy vs. Jason where like Jason's walking around and there's a tow truck that drives past him with an old man in it. And that's like the old man that was in the Leatherface reboot series. And I'm like, okay, was that an Easter egg to try and bring Leatherface in for the next one? But it never happened, and but really nobody ever talks about it. So unless I'm crazy, that's what it looked like to me. But to me, that would have been perfect to do another one with them fighting and bringing Leatherface or Michael Myers. Of course, there was a script for Freddy versus Jason versus Ash. That fell apart. But it's amazing that this movie was such a big hit. And all these years later, what are we, 18 years or 17 years
Yeah,
later,
it's been a while.
and it never happened and doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon.
I think bringing Michael Myers into the equation would have been just absolutely perfect. But again, we're crossing over different studios and
Right.
things like that. So yeah, yeah. Even just well, the problem is I think at the end of the film, it's pretty much a decisive win for Jason for the most part. So
I guess, but Freddie winks, so I don't even know what
yeah,
that means.
exactly. Yeah, I don't know. It's like it's a fun film. It's
Yeah,
definitely on
it's a
the
lot. That's it. It's a lot of fun.
yeah, it's corny as hell, but
Yeah,
it's fun. It was cool to see it, and yeah, I mean, they gave the impression because let's face it, Hollywood has been trying to do these big monster clash mashup things for decades,
oh yeah,
ever since Universal was doing it, and they just never gotten the formula right.
no,
Toho has done it,
right.
obviously, but yeah, just Hollywood just keeps trying, and just I don't know, just do it. People pay
Yeah,
for it. That's we all did.
totally.
We all did. That's a cool one. All
Yeah.
right. So here's another fairly recent dish. God, I'm forgetting when this came out. This is also like that 2007 or something like that. Anyway, we've talked a lot about like these horror anthology films here on the channel. Obviously, creep shows and all that sort of thing. And this one came out, like early in the 2000s and did pretty well. I don't know anybody who's a horror fan who doesn't really, like this quite a bit. And we never saw another one, Trick or Treat.
Yep.
I mean, this is kind of like what we were talking about on a couple episodes ago with the whole Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, and how the original plan was that was going to be going forward after that film. Every year was going to be a new Halloween film with a different storyline about something completely different. And they obviously scrapped that when that film didn't do well and went back to the Michael Myers well. And all those years later, that's kind of what this is. It's like a bunch of short stories that just take place around Halloween. It's really good, very successful. And I think most of us thought, okay, they're going to do maybe one of these every year or every couple of years or whatever. And we never got another one. Why? I don't know. I think this was ready-made. I mean, I love this just as much as some of the creep show stuff and Tales from the Dark Side and all that. I mean, I just think they're all.
And it would be so easy to have that little Sam character. The actor will never age out. You could have a different actor every year in the suit.
Yeah.
And you could have him just be in the movie, hosting it, so to speak, or being a background character in every story. I mean, you could do whatever with it. Yeah, it really is crazy that somebody's sitting on this thing for whatever reason.
Yeah.
This could be one of those things. Maybe there's two people that both have the rights and they're fighting over it, or
that could be.
Who knows?
Because
there is a lot of Trick or Treat merchandise out there now.
Yes.
I mean, there's action figures and masks and
why is that? Why is that when they haven't done a film in over 15 years or whatever it is?
Right.
15 years.
Yeah.
Whatever this is. 2007. So that's almost 15 years ago.
Yeah. That's a long time.
The beauty about doing these sort of films is that you don't have to spend big bucks on the huge stars that you got to pay because you're starting the whole film, because you get a decent star that's well known, that's a genre veteran that is going to appear in a 20-minute segment. You probably don't have to pay him, as many millions.
Nicolas Cage will practically work for food. I mean,
exactly, right? I mean, and all the others like him, right? It's just totally. So I don't understand it. I watch, this is another one of those that I watch every year around Halloween time, just because it's so much fun.
Yeah.
So well done. It's like, I'll go to the theater to see more. I'll buy Blu-rays
or
they do. So what are we waiting for? Hollywood.
Yeah.
Hello, McFly. Let's go. Do it. So anyway.
Yeah, I'm sold. I like it. I like it. My next one is a twofer, because it was an original and there was a remake. And I would love to see direct sequels to both. My all-time favorite horror movie is Dawn of the Dead. And yes, we did get a sequel in Day of the Dead, but it really has nothing to do with Dawn of the Dead, other than that the zombie plague has advanced even further. But I would love to see what happens to Fran and Peter and where they
afterwards, right? Like immediately afterwards, or a couple months later or something.
Yes, that would be great. I would love to see like what happened with them. If they made it back then, and if they made it now, all these years later, maybe they wind up on a Caribbean island and they run into the survivors from Day of the Dead. I'm sure I'm not the only person who's thought of that, but why not? Everybody's all still alive. So I would love to see that. And I really did enjoy the Dawn of the Dead remake from, that was like 2004, I think. And, that was Fast Zombies, and it was a big hit, made a lot of money, plays on cable all the time. Like, how was there never a sequel to that? And the movie ends with the survivors getting to some kind of island, and then you see their zombies on that island. Like, okay, I would love to know what happened from there, but we'll probably never get it.
Yeah, probably not at this point. It should have happened a long time ago.
Yeah.
All right. I'm curious if you've ever seen this film. So this film came out in 2011, and 2011, what Hollywood was trying to do was to create new iconic horror characters. because obviously Jason and Freddie and Michael Myers and Pinhead and Ash and all that had been around for a long, long time. So we saw a lot of these new horror characters that were being created. It's a lot of these one-off films as they were trying to create these new, monsters, so to speak. And here was a little film that I didn't see it in the theaters, but I saw when it came on demand, and I really liked it a lot. I bought it on DVD. I recently replaced the DVD with Blu-ray, and it was kind of like a Southern, like voodoo in the swamps type of horror creature, whatever you want to call it. Venom, not to be confused with Venom, obviously Marvel's Venom. Never saw it?
No.
Pretty cool.
Okay.
Got a good cast, good young cast, a lot of attractive young ladies in here, and just it's a really good modern kind of take on the whole, there's a mysterious monster who gets conjured up, and now he's terrorizing everybody in this little small town type of thing.
I thought you were going to say Hatchet.
Oh,
even though there's a bunch of sequels of that.
Yeah. Yep, that's this is quite good.
All right, I'm gonna have to see that.
And again, it kind of ends like maybe like they wanted to make a franchise out of this, but it got a very limited release. This was a Miramax film, and it just didn't really do too well or go anywhere, unfortunately. But when you watch it, and you're like, it's fun, it's pretty gory, it's got some great kills. The monster, makeup and whatever looks really, really good. And he had all the makings of the next kind of, ominous creature out there along the lines of all those other guys we talked about. And it just didn't happen. And they threw, voodoo in the mix. Anytime you throw voodoo in the mix, it's kind of interesting. And I was waiting for another one, and never came.
Never happened.
Never came. Yeah, I'm amazed you haven't seen this. It's pretty good.
All right, I'm gonna have to see that one then, Pete, for sure. That's that one I don't know that one.
Yeah, but you would like that. You would like it.
All right, I have to put that on my list to see. Let's see. My next one is kind of a funny one. It's from a few years ago. I don't have the props with me. Sorry, Pete. I didn't get a chance to dig through the collection. But this is one I've seen a couple times, and I'll never forget the first time I watched it. I just laughed and laughed. I thought it was so funny. And it's Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
I've never seen that. I
thought it. Oh, I have to let you borrow the disc. It's funny, it's gory, but yet it's got a lot of heart. There's kind of a love story at the same time, and I'm like, it's two bumbling hicks, out in the woods, and I don't want to give too much away, but like the concept of these two, bumbling idiots out in the woods, fighting off. It's almost like Evil Dead. Like, okay, well, you could do anything. Like, you could do Tucker and Dale versus zombies. You could do Tucker and Dale versus vampires. Tucker and Dale versus aliens. I mean, you could do it. You could get a whole franchise out of this. I don't know how much it made, but I really enjoyed it, and I think it's something that you could really have a lot of fun with, and not be tied down to all the different, rules of making horror movies. And yeah, there's a million horror comedies, but not that many of them are done well. And I think Tucker and Dale versus Evil really was a hoot. And,
yeah, I've heard of it. I've never seen it. I probably should check it out.
Yeah, it's a fun one.
Cool. So speaking of kind of horror comedies, here's a classic one that I think has been talked about getting a sequel for a million years, and it just never happens.
I think I know where you're going with this one.
Killer Clowns from Outer Space. I mean, this movie is like so much fun. This is such a weird acid trip of a movie that the end, I mean, the aliens could come back and let's do it all over again. And you watch this and you could just think, how is there not like 5 movies of this?
Oh, totally. And this is another perfect example. Just like Trick or Treat, in 2021, there is a shit ton of Killer Clowns merchandise. Mego is coming out like in the next few weeks with Killer Clown's Mego 8-inch retro action figures. So if you can make figures with it, how come they haven't made another movie since 1988?
I bought 3 Killer Clowns t-shirts in the last 6 months.
Right. I have Killer Clown's Funko Pops. I mean, it's crazy.
And they keep this is the steel
Like
disc.
they
Right?
keep reissuing the movie.
It'll be out in
There's
4K.
there's models of it, and I mean, there's so much merchandise now.
Yeah. Now, are they doing all this to help drive the creation of a new movie, or I mean, what's
No
because
one,
this movie's
no
30
idea.
years old?
Yeah, older, right? Because I think it's 88,
Yeah.
89, something like that.
Yeah, so it's the 31, 32, 33 years old. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember being a kid hearing about it. That's one of those movies that I forget if I read about it in Fangoria or whatever, but I was like, I got to see this in the theater, and it wound up never playing locally in my area, so I didn't see it off film till like the 2010s when somebody had a print.
Yeah.
But
I rented it on VHS.
Yeah, that's when I first rented it,
and I remember specifically, like, because again, this was back in the late 80s, right, early 90s. It's like, so you're a young kid. I was young at the time, and Friday or Saturday night, rent movie night, go out and get a case of beer, and you're getting rowdy watching the films and just laughing hysterically at this, thinking it was the most absurd thing I've ever seen.
But the special effects are so good.
They're really good. It's a very impressive movie. And it's just so weird and wacky and different. And that's, I think, the charm of the whole thing, right? Because it is so different, and it works, and it holds up well. And I mean, I watched it a couple of months ago again for the first time in a long time. And I'm like, oh, this movie is so good. It's like, how did we not get like 2, 3, 4 of these, right? It's like, I'll never know. Well, never say never. I mean, we hear rumblings every now and then, so we'll see.
And I was gonna say, this is another one like Trick or Treat and a few of these other ones like Monster Squad, where you don't need, you don't have to pay Robert Englund a shit ton of money to come back. Your franchise is on the clown people and the clown makeups and
you can get
special effects, and that's it. You can get Joe Bag of Donuts to get hit in the head and have his head explode by the clown hammers. I mean, it's totally fine. That's your franchise right there. So right, what somebody's sitting on. Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah. All right, back to you.
I've got another horror franchise that was a big hit. I did look this one up, and I think it said it was like a $5 million budget, and it made 30-something million worldwide, which is not a massive hit, but pretty good. I saw this in the theater and loved it, and I can't believe it's 17 years later and no sequel, and never even talk of a sequel. And I'm talking about 2004's Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody, the director and cast went on to do plenty of other things, but there was never a sequel to Shaun of the Dead. And
everybody loved that film.
Loved it. I mean, it's really one of those universally loved movies that's so funny, but yet also still totally works as a horror movie, which is difficult to do. And I mean, I would have loved a sequel back then. I would still love one now. I was thinking, well, maybe, this whole time Ed or Sean is still keeping Ed in the shed, but maybe he's feeding him like really rare hamburgers, and then the zombie outbreak, starts up again, and people find out that he's got a zombie, so they want to kill Ed. And I was like, well, the power goes out, and the only place that has a generator that has a freezer stocked full of hamburger meat is the Winchester. So now Sean has to, take zombie Ed, through the streets and get to the Winchester to make him a rare burger so he doesn't eat anybody. I mean, that's the best I could come up with, but I'm like, well, it's something.
Yeah, it's something. It's something.
But yeah, we never got it. I don't think we're ever getting it.
No,
at this point,
it's been a long time. I mean, geez,
yeah,
long time.
Yeah, and all those guys have gone on to do a million other things and been in, worked with each other in other movies. So I don't think we're seeing it, but another one would have been fun.
So for my next choice, so before we went on the air, Chris and I were talking about how in the 80s, so many of the slasher films that got even moderately popular all spawned, if not one sequel, 2, 3, 4, and 5 sequels, right? And but there were a few that for some strange reason never did. And you go back and watch some of these slasher classics and you think, wow, these are just as good as some of the ones that did spawn a million sequels. Why didn't they get any? And one in particular, which I always really liked, it's kind of a minor one, but I think in all the subsequent years, I think it's looked upon pretty positively all these years later. How about The Prowler?
Oh, sure.
I mean, at the end of this film, spoiler alert if you haven't seen it, close your ears for a couple of minutes. But, the guy who it winds up being the Prowler is the sheriff, and he goes, the whole story goes back to all those years later, or before and whatever. And then when you finally get the big reveal at the end and they kill him at the end, but who's to say, like, he didn't have a buddy that was with him in the war, right? Who maybe knows the whole story that could, in the sequel, could go and don the the military garb and go on a killing spree, or maybe he's got a secret illegitimate son or something like that, or whatever the story might be. But we've seen crazier stuff than that on some of the sequels, right? So why not The Prowler, right? Because who doesn't love a slasher film with a guy dressed up in some ridiculous outfit killing teenagers? That's what these movies are all about. And Tom Savini worked on it.
And I was going to say, the true star of The Prowler is Tom Savini's makeup. Ugh. And if I remember right, I believe Tom Savini said his favorite of all his movies that he worked on was the effects in The Prowler.
So these are some of the best kill scenes ever. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I don't care. We'll redo the story, do a sequel, whatever, 40 years later. But put Tom Savini on the set supervising the effects and everything. And it would be great.
Yeah. I love this film. I think this is
a classic.
Underrated early 80s classic. So yeah. All right, here we go.
All right, well, speaking of a guy in a ridiculous black outfit that's murdering teenagers, and you said it was a minor slasher. My pick is, again, it's a twofer, since it's a minor slasher. My Bloody Valentine. There we go. I was going to say both.
That was my next pick too.
Both the original and the remake are both great. I mean, I saw the original in the drive-in in 1981, and I saw the remake in the theater with the 3D. And me and my buddy Sean always say it was like the best 3D we'd ever seen in a theater. And man, both movies were one and done. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, well, they both, just the crazy killer Axel is still around, or like a soap opera, he's got a twin brother. I don't know. He's got an illegitimate son. Somebody finds a suit and the pickaxe and starts killing people again. Yeah. I don't care. Just, it
was a great concept, and he looked great, right? I mean,
it's amazing.
Yeah. And the press. Someone needs to throw the Prowler and the Miner in a film together and bring them back from the
dead. There you go. Let them fight each other.
That's it. Oh man, yeah. That's we were both on the same page with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Actually, that's the first one that came to mind when we talked about doing this. My Bloody. How was there never a sequel?
How was there never a sequel? And again, I just got. My buddy Sean got me the My Bloody Valentine Mego action figure. Like, so somebody still has the rights and is still making some kind of money off of it.
Yeah.
And I thought that remake, that did okay in the theater. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So crazy.
Strange. So kind of along the same lines, another cool slasher film from right around the same time, that one and done. It's a load of fun. It did pretty well, and quite frankly, you can make a sequel to Terror Train. How about Terror Bus, Terror Plane, Terror Hotel? I don't know, whatever, right? I mean, you can get this anywhere, and why not? And it's like you got Jamie Lee Curtis. I mean, how many prom nights did we get? Got a few
Right.
of those.
None of which had Jamie Lee Curtis other than the first one.
Right. Yeah. And you don't even need her for a second film. But I
Yeah.
mean, you could just take the same kind of concept and do it
Yeah.
somewhere else on another form of transportation, terror
Guy in a creepy
autobahn, or
mask.
whatever. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Absolutely. But we never got anything. And I don't know. I love the concept of this. And I watched this a million times in my life. This is just a load of fun. And again, what happened? Why not that one? And why so many of the other ones? I don't know.
Right.
Who knows?
Absolutely. No, I love it. I love it. Um, all right. This one is kind of a weird one because this is like a perfect horror movie, and the ending is definitely ambiguous. And there have been sequel video games and sequel comic books. But every time I see the movie, I always think, "Oh man, I want more." And it's 1982's John Carpenter's The Thing. McCready and Childs are, out in the snow, just waiting to freeze to death. And there was a sequel comic, where I forget if they got rescued before they died or if they actually got frozen and were in like suspended animation. But eventually they both make it to a populated city. And then you find out Childs was the thing, and McCready's the only one that knows and has to hunt him down. And I think that would be a great sequel in a different setting, maybe not as frightening as the original, and maybe of course you wouldn't have that feeling of isolation. But I think it would be great. I mean, Kurt Russell could have done it 40 years ago. He still looks great now, so he could do. You could say that they were frozen and suspended animation for 40 years and just got thawed out now. Crazier movie concepts have happened. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, yeah. We got the kind of the prequel, but not the what
yeah,
happens afterwards,
what
right?
happens after?
Yeah. Maybe someday, you never know.
Yeah,
You never know. All right. So this is a more recent one. Geez, what year did this come out in? It's a couple of years ago, not that long ago. So the film is It Follows. And this is directed by David Robert Mitchell. So this is an interesting film about how this character, the guy in this couple that are making out in the car here, he winds up having sexual relations with this woman. And during it, he gets transferred this affliction where wherever he goes, he sees like strange ghosts that just follow him all around, and it's driving him absolutely mad. That's the curse put upon him. So the only way he can transfer this curse to someone else is to go have sex with someone else. And then these strange otherworldly beings will then follow the other person. So he transfers it to his girlfriend. The only reason he started dating her is because he wanted to get rid of this shit. So he does that. And so the whole film, without telling the whole story, centers on her then trying to get rid of this curse that's on her then. And, the end of the film leaves it open to, you think she gives it away to someone else, then it turns out that's not really the case. So nothing really gets resolved. And it's like, all right, well, continue on with the story because we want to know what happened here. Who else has it? Who else could get it? And to this day, again, maybe it's still fairly fresh because, again, I don't remember exactly what year this was. 2015, so 6 years ago. So still nothing, but I could have easily seen this. I mean, they've done how many Conjuring films, right?
right.
How many, I mean, we can name a whole bunch of other series that, that they've done in recent last couple of decades. But to date, nothing on this one yet. So I would have liked to have seen another one. But
I've never seen that. That's another one I'll have to.
It's good. Yeah, it's good. It's pretty creepy. It's definitely it's a different idea too, which is kind of
right.
Cool. So
yeah. That's good. I got one other one of mine is God. I think this movie is originally from 1990, and I have 3 different versions of this on Blu-ray. I remember seeing it in the theater twice in 1990, and I remember the second time. My girlfriend and I at the time were the only ones in the theater, but it's gotten a cult following in the last 30 something years, and it's Clive Barker's Nightbreed. There we go. And
Where you were
yeah,
going with that? Yep, I was thinking the same thing.
I mean, the movie just ends on a bit of a cliffhanger. At least the theatrical version. The director's cut does not, and the Cabal cut, I don't remember how it ends. But yeah, the theatrical cut, which is the best cut, definitely, ends on a cliffhanger with Boone and the Nightbreed looking for a new home, and I think that would have been a perfect setup for a sequel. I would have put them in like something like a city like Los Angeles, and like they're in the city and they're trying to hide in the city, but sometimes they get spotted, but they look weird, but so does everybody else in Los Angeles, so they can kind of blend in a little bit. But I think that would be great. And I mean, of course, it's all these years later, but again, Nightbreed is more popular now than it was 30 years ago, so
Yeah.
who knows.
Didn't they originally want that to be like a whole new kind of
Oh yeah,
franchise thing? I mean,
they
it's like it
wanted
had
to
all
be.
the elements for it,
Yeah,
right? Because it's got this comic bookness to it, which I think,
totally.
fantasy element, which I think really would have worked for successive movies, but
Yeah. I
just
think
didn't
the
capture the
plan.
public's attention.
Yeah, the plan was a trilogy, I believe, but the movie tanked. I remember the marketing was terrible. I remember even as a kid. I mean, it came out in 1990, so what was I? I think I was 18 or 19, and I went to the theater not really knowing what I was going to see, other than that it was a Clive Barker movie, and I liked Hellraiser, so I was like, okay, I'm going. But you didn't really know. I knew it was a Clive Barker movie, and there was some kind of monsters in it. That's pretty much all. It's not like today where you can Google whatever and watch the trailers, and knuckleheads like me and you can guys dissect every bit of the
When
trailer
it comes out, right?
and tell you who's Pete. 30 years ago, there was a newspaper ad, and you might have seen a commercial on TV, or you read something in Fangoria if you subscribed, and you were like, oh, okay, that's all I know.
Now it's like, here's the third and final trailer. It's like three
Yeah,
trailers, and the trailer's like 2.5 minutes long. We
exactly.
never got those back in the day. You might just
Yeah, and
show us the whole damn movie at this point, you know?
and every star that's in it. You know all the plot synopsises. You know everything.
That's why
But
people are
yeah,
so spoiled nowadays. They're
yeah,
so spoiled.
back
People,
way back.
yeah, people who are weighing in opinions based on trailers that,
Yes.
like, why don't you wait and go see the movie before you start talking crap about a movie, right? It's like, it's
Oh, totally.
amazing. It's just
Well,
amazing.
those are the same people that on Amazon will give Nightbreed 0 stars because when they got it in the mail, the box was all smashed up.
Yeah, that's got nothing to do with the film.
Nothing to do with the film, buddy.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like you're not putting a rating based on the delivery
Yes.
satisfaction, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Crazy. All right, I got a couple more. I'll blow through these pretty quick. So I don't know if you've ever seen this film. I really like this film. This film is just completely unnerving, especially if like dolls or dummies are kind of creepy to you.
Okay.
Magic, starring Anthony
Oh
Hopkins.
yes. And best part of that movie is Anne Margaret for sure. I mean, she looks amazing in that movie.
I love her. I always, when I was a kid, I had such a crush on Anne Margaret. She was like one of her and Linda Carter were like my two like real name like celebrity crushes for little teenage me. But yeah, this is, I mean, that the dummy is like so creepy in this film. And the ending is a little ambiguous because it's like you could just almost see kind of a sequel where all of a sudden the dummy winds up in the someone else, right? And that person also has, goes a little bit nutty and what have you, right? Because you don't really know, was he just nuts? Was Anthony Hopkins just nuts, or was there something going on with the dummy?
Totally, yeah. No, it's very open ended.
A precursor in a way to the Chucky films, perhaps.
Oh, absolutely,
right?
Absolutely.
Never gets the credit though.
No,
never gets the credit.
And it's amazing that Magic was one and done, if I'm not mistaken, not even a remake. No. And Chucky is, holy shit. What have we got? 6 movies?
I lost count.
5, 6, 7 movies, and now a TV show, which is really good and just got renewed for a second season.
Yeah. Plus all the Puppet Master films, right? So it's like, it's amazing.
There you go. It's another. Oh my God! Talk about a movie franchise. I don't even know how many Puppet Master movies there are.
12, 14? I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know. Here's one you might not expect. Night of the Creeps.
Yep, that was on my list. Yeah.
I mean, how about like kind of taking this whole concept into the future and either making it a remake or a reimagining, but doing it, in the 2000s or the
Right.
2030s or something like that? Because this has got this kind of whole like, kind of like 50s mentality going on. I mean, it's obviously not taking place there, but it's like, I think this, because you could take this whole concept and just put like a futuristic spin on it. And it would, even though it could be looked at as a reimagining, you could do like kind of like a remake, but make it really different based on the locale and everything like that.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
yeah. And that movie is so much fun. So much fun. And my last one today, it's probably, if it's not my favorite serial killer film of all time, it's number two. And the ending is such a gut punch of an ending that you almost want to know, well, what happened to these characters after that just absolutely just like jaw-dropping finale. Seven.
Oh,
Like, so what actually happens to Brad Pitt's character?
right.
Does he go completely nutso after that ending? Like, does Morgan Freeman's character, does he retire? How does he recover from that? How do all these characters deal with just like reality after what happens at the end of that film? Like what happens to their careers? Do they have a career after that? I mean, just like it's like it leaves open, and maybe that's the brilliance of this, which kind of goes back to the Black Christmas thing. It's like it's a perfect, almost like a perfect ending that makes you kind of want more, but the more you think about it, you're like, well,
Right.
maybe it should never go past that,
I
right?
mean, I don't know how you would top that ending.
It's one of the greatest endings in any film ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. But it makes you think. It's like,
Oh, for sure.
does Brad Pitt's character, does he go back to, his job? And, is there another serial killer out there that he winds up chasing after? And, how does he deal with that after all this that he's been through? I don't know.
Yeah. Interesting.
So who knows? So there you have it, everybody. Those great horror films
Sequels we never got.
never got a sequel. Never got a sequel, and what we think they might be had they done that. Be interesting to see 5 years from now if any of these actually come to fruition. Right. There's a couple that might happen, but I think most of them.
Yeah. Yeah, most of them are slim. I could see. I think out of all of them, I could see Killer Clowns and Trick or Treat.
Yes, I agree with you. Yeah, and I think the other one, which would be a no-brainer, is My Bloody Valentine.
Yes, or at this point, another remake it another third time. I could see them because it's been so long now.
Yeah, well, what's the point of that? Like,
Right.
What's the point? I don't know. It's like it's like remaking Hills Have Eyes again.
Well, I mean, Black Christmas they made a third time. I mean,
Yeah, and that third remake came 2 years after the second remake?
Oh yeah, and I did, that one I haven't seen, but I heard it was terrible.
I heard it was the worst. I've only watched the second one. It's just like, oh God. Yeah, I don't know. The first one's just such brilliance. I don't know.
But I'm sure we're going to hit that soon, where there'll be yet another remake of The Hills Have Eyes and another remake of Prom Night. Because some of those remakes now are getting to be so 15, old.
20 years old. Yeah. I think another, and I don't even know if we've done this, but how about like those great horror films that deserve a remake and we never got it? Can we do something like that?
Be good. Did we ever do it?
I don't know. I don't think so.
I don't know if we did.
I don't know. We may have. We've done a couple twists on. I think we did one with Rich to remake or not to remake, and we might have touched.
Oh yes, that's right. I do remember that.
Hard to remember. We've done a lot of episodes.
We're gonna remake Rich Catino, but we're gonna make him less of a Winger fan.
Rich, if you're watching, that would be interesting.
We'll keep him just as pretty, but less of a Winger fan.
Less of a Winger fan. There you go. No hair metal for Rich.
Yes,
that'll be his new name. No hair metal Rich.
No hair metal Rich. I like that. We love you, Rich. All
of a sudden, Rich will be going home listening to his Death and Morbid Angel.
Nice. That's it.
Too funny.
Funny
stuff. There you have it, everybody. Sequels that we never got. If you think there's any that we're completely missing here, put them in the comments below. Give us a little reminder and what your synopsis might be for these potential sequels of some great horror classics that never got them. So thanks for watching. Hopefully we'll be able to do our favorite modern horror films post 2000 next week with Dave LaGreca. So we'll keep you all updated on that. I'll keep you updated on how that's going, but I'm assuming we're going to try and fit that in next Thursday if possible. So stay tuned for that. As Chris and I were already talking about, you know, we've made lots of claims here on the show over the years that we're not the hugest fans of modern horror, but once we started to look back and put this list together, we realized we do like a ton of modern horror films.
It's true.
Probably more than we thought. So I have now taken a back step on that stance and saying, you know, there is a lot of shitty modern horror, but there's also a lot of
really good stuff.
Yes. I think, you know what it is, it's just so much is produced nowadays that there
Yes,
is a lot of crap, but there is a lot of really good ones as well that it just, yeah, I started looking through my collection. I'm like, holy shit, I got a ton of horror stuff that since 2000, and a lot of them I really love a lot. So yeah, we got the olds. That's what happens, right? So
no doubt.
So thanks for watching, everybody. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. For Chris Alo, I am Pete Pardo. Thanks for watching us here in the Monsters Den. Fill your weekend with lots of terrifying delights, and stay tuned for more next week from us. We'll see you then. Take care. Bye-bye.